Hey, everybody. I am so thrilled to finally bring you Matt Nolan as a guest today. Matt is a true veteran of the boutique fitness scene. He has been with Barry's for over 7 years now. I was there for your seventh day, and I feel very lucky. His current role is the chief curriculum lead of Barry's, and he has a long list of certifications. So, we're going to be talking a lot today about growing within a company, what you guys should look for as trainers within your own classes, if sort of just to take control of your own classes, and a lot more. So, welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you for having me. So excited to do this.
And fun fact, I actually today, when I was researching, remembered that you also did a PN. You did the product notification email for Lululemon Union Square. And that was, I think, how we actually connected, because you led the run club for us back in, I don't
Yes.
even know, 2012 or 2013
That
or
might have
something.
been like my year one. So that's kind of fun to think that that was our first interaction was year one. And now 7 years later, here we both are continuing to grow in this place. So it's a fun not full circle moment because we're not closed. It's not closed loop. We're gonna keep going up. So
It's in the infinity loop somewhere.
yes.
Amazing. Okay. Can you tell everybody about yourself, where you are right now, and kind of just like what your day to day looks like?
Sure thing. So technically, I am back home on Long Island. I'm from Long Island, New York, specifically Rockville Center. So I grew up here, and then we just recently moved to Long Island with the opening of Barry's Roslyn, our newest studio in New York. We just opened in Roslyn in July. So it was a studio that I had circled for a couple of years now, ever since they announced it. I was very much looking forward to this because, as you try to figure out where you're going to be in life, I'm married, I have a son. You start to think about, where do we want to be? Where do we want to raise a family? And what's going to put me in a situation where I'm still able to commute and not have a crazy commute and be able to be nearby, all the different things you want to check off your list. So it's fun to be back in the town that I grew up in, but now seeing it through the eyes of my son and taking him to places that I went to when I was a kid. So it's a very, that's a full circle. That's a closed loop moment. But that's where I am now, and been with Barry's for 7 years now. And it's truly been, for me, finding Barry's was the culmination of every interest and every job and everything that I've ever done kind of meeting and coming together in such a way that it always just felt like the most natural thing that I've ever done. The simplicity of teaching a Barry's class for me just combines things that I've been doing my entire life, whether it was playing sports, whether it was performing, whether it was my love of music, whether it was trying to be a comedian, whatever, all the different things when you think of like what goes into an instructor. I feel like I've been doing this as long as I can remember. So that's kind of where I'm at now, how I got to Barry's and how it's basically been my life's work leading me here, but I never even realized it. And I would have never even thought that I would end up doing what I do now.
Right. And you have you mentioned your performing background.
Yeah.
So prior to Barry's, what was what was leading you up exactly to kind of getting there? Because I know that you were on Broadway, right?
Yeah. So I did some, we call them Broadway tours. So I never made it to actual Broadway. My wife did, but I never made it to Broadway. But I did do some Broadway national tours of shows like Grease. Hairspray was my first tour. Rock of Ages was the last show that I did. That's actually the show that I met my wife during. So I had done that for about 5 or 6 years. I was doing that. And during my time doing shows was how I met two really good, still friends of mine today, Amber Reese and Lindsay Clayton, who I know you know. Brave Body, shout out. So I met them doing Hairspray together. And while I was still performing, they were starting to leave the performing world and they got into the fitness world. And they were my first introduction to Barry's. So they were working and teaching there, and knowing me, knowing my interest, they're like, you have to come try this. You have to come see what it is. And I came. My first class was with Barry J. Everyone always asks this question. There is a Barry. Everyone always asks, who's Barry's? Are you Barry? I'm not Barry. There is a Barry. His name is Barry J. And he was actually only visiting New York because he's out in LA. So he taught class and I took it, and I just like many of us, you find that one class in the city that you become hooked with, and I was immediately hooked. So I was a Barry's client for that whole first year when it opened in Chelsea in 2011. And over time, not only did I love taking class, but I started to think, what, I could do a better class. I won't name any names, but I was like, I could do a better class than that person, or oh, this would be fun to do. And it just kind of planted the seed. And of course, seeing two friends of mine start to develop and start their training and fitness journeys, it kind of made it more palpable, more real, as opposed to like, I have no fitness certifications. I didn't go to school for this, like all the things you convince yourself of to not do something, of like, well, if I don't have this, then it could never be. But the more I started to get to know the trainers, the more I started to get to know the front desk, like again, just from the client side first, of feeling the Barry's community, it felt more like a real thing, that like, oh, I learned that a lot of the trainers worked at the fuel bar and then became trainers, or some of them were clients that they loved and they were like, you know what, maybe training could be for you. So it was interesting to see different people's paths and journeys, and it made it feel less like, oh, I can't do this. Now it became, how am I going to do this? And then I did a ship in Hawaii, singing on a ship. And it was during that time that I was like, all right, when I come back, I am not working in a restaurant anymore. I am leaving that world behind. And I was getting certified. I did my NASM certification while I was on the cruise ship. And when I came back, I went straight to Chelsea. I talked to Robbie at the time, McMillan, and I had an interview with Joey Gonzalez when he was still in New York. So I met them. I did training in the Hamptons that summer. And then I taught my first ever Barry's class on September 17th, which was my wife's birthday. So it was a double special day. And the rest is history, so to speak.
Oh, that is amazing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what exactly was it about? Were you on the ship just being like, I know the music, I know the movement, like I know how we should be moving to music kind of thing? Because your music is phenomenal in your classes.
Oh,
And I think
thank you.
it's such an interesting, like even, when we met, like I was at Lululemon and you were Barry's,
Yeah,
like we always had so many performers that were working for Lululemon. And even when I was at Soul Cycle, because
yeah.
I think, yes, like the flexibility of the schedule, but also there's like that intrinsic training where like you can move to music, and when you can get people motivated based on a song, like I feel like that's such a huge thing. So was that kind of like in the back of your brain?
It was, and it's something that the commonality of, as you know, from the world of seeing, where people are drawn to group fitness, and a lot of them do have performing backgrounds, and the musicality is huge and crucial, because like any good song, like any good story movie, there has to be an ebb and flow. There's the peaks and valleys, there's the ups and downs. It can't just be screaming, 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 yelling, 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 songs that make you want to like give you a headache before you've realized it. You have to tell a story, and any good performer is a storyteller and understands how to take you up and down, go on that journey with you, and use the music to do it. Because again, it'd be the simple example of when I'm training new trainers, if I take a great workout, let's say just a small 5-minute block when we're doing training exercises, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll ask them to teach that same program they just taught that just went well, it was great, perfect, and I'll put on like the most random song possible. Not gonna, down talk any type of music, but I'll put on just something you would never work out to, just to really prove that point of like, that workout was fantastic, but as soon as you do it to the wrong type of music, it doesn't matter. I don't care how great you are, this and that, like all of those different elements, if they're not working well together, then all the other good work you've done is lost. So to me, I think it's, and I call people who are like me entertainers, right? So they're entertainers who become trainers. They just have so much of that already from years of performing and knowing what good shows are and listening to fantastic music, that if you are able to mesh the two and bring that into a fitness class, it just takes you to a whole other place.
Yeah, I love that. All right. So first 2 years, let's say, passed at Barry's. At what point were you like, all right, this is a career and like, this is where I want to stay? Like what sort of turned it for you from being a side gig to being like, this is going to be my career? Because I think there are a lot of trainers, I think, in that
Oh
space
yeah.
of like, this is a good amount of money. This is, it's fun for me. But a
Yeah.
lot of people, I think, are like, I'm going to burn out or my body's going to burn out. Like something's going to happen. So, the burnout thing we can talk about in a little bit, but like,
Yeah.
when did you know this was where you wanted to really be?
Um, I mean, it's many different things because, like anything, for me also. So when I started at Barry's, I was already, well, I was 30. I was 30 years old at the time. So I think a big part of it, which is true of any career, anything, is just where you are in life, right? So for me, and I felt somewhat not old for the game, but kind of late to the game because you're all anytime I feel like anyone who starts in fitness, there's always going to be a lot of trainers who are like starting in their like early 20s to some who maybe they're in their mid 30s to maybe who are even older than me. Whenever they start, right? So you see just people kind of moving through the business because it is a business with lots of turnover, right? We see people who come and go, meaning they start teaching and then they just leave fitness completely, or they teach and they're working at 2 or 3 different studios at the same time, which was something very common when I started. I saw like it seemed normal to be someone who had to work at 3 different studios and have private clients just to make ends meet. Not like you describe all that and you think, oh, that must mean you're like so comfortable and this and that. It's like, no, you do all that stuff because that seems to be what it's like. But when I started, and that was only 7 years ago. And then you also have, sadly, the negative of like when you see trainers who are older, sometimes clients look at that as like, oh, they're not cool. They're not like the type of trainer I want to take from, right? So you see all these different things from the client side heading into it that when I was like moving into year 1, year 2, what made the switch for me was just realizing that I was, for me personally, at a place that appreciated what I was doing, appreciated my hard work, and recognized it at different stages along the way. Um, and and that was anything from like I personally didn't have to ask to receive a better schedule, or like certain things would just happen at certain times where my hard work was getting seen, right? Like I was the night owl. I taught all the 9 p.m.s in NoHo when I first started. So some people do the opposite. Like sometimes when you start out, certain class times, which are deemed, not the prime time class times, they're just as
Yeah.
important as any other though. So I was the night owl.
9 p.m. though?
9 p.m.s,
Are there
Monday,
still
Tuesday.
9 p.m.s? I'm like sleeping, but what? I can't
Monday,
imagine.
NoHo. It was NoHo had just opened for New York fitness people. Barry's NoHo had just opened, so I was in charge of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night 9 p.m.s, and on Saturday, Sunday 5:45 p.m.s on Saturdays and Sundays. Those were my jams. And over time, some of those would start to be replaced by just better class times and this and that, and it all happened in a natural way where it felt like my hard work in taking those class times and building them and actually seeing them go from like some of those 9 p.m.s were like I was lucky if I had 2 people in them to get that up to I think the most I ever had at 9 p.m. was like 30. I was averaging like 30 people at 9 p.m. And to answer your question, it was like, and I feel like many fitness people might want to do this in class sometimes where you have that inclination, and this is any time of day where you're like, everyone, what's your job that you can take class at 2 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon? I'm just curious. I'm just wondering. But it's New York, and we have so
Yeah.
many different professionals of all different places. So
Yeah.
that being aside,
I took one like 3 p.m. class one time because I had gotten out of work early. This is like when I was still working in a corporate job. And I remember it was all supermodels, all of them. And I was like,
uh-huh.
nope, I will never again go to a daytime class. Like, hands down, I'm not doing that.
Oh
I
my
will go to the
goodness.
regular people time slot.
And what was funny was like as late as that sounds, and for some it might be like, oh, that's way too late. Like you have to remember, I was coming from restaurant world. So for restaurant world, 9 p.m. that sounded like, wait, I'm gonna be done by 10 p.m. That's like early. That's like, oh, I'll get home before midnight. Like so again, for where I was in life, like I said, like 30 years old, from what I was doing before I got to Barry's, like that was a dream. Like 9 p.m. it was like no sweat. But again, point being like my time at Barry's, every moment that I was thinking like, oh, what happens next? Like, how do I make this grow? My classes improved, or I saw my attendance getting better, or more and more clients and people in the community were incredibly complimentary, or telling me how they would look for me on the schedule, like little clues, little breadcrumbs along the way, just always made me feel like I was in the right place. And then an important moment happened around year 2, and that was when our group came in, North Castle came in to help with the expansion of Barry's. So I was there at the start of that. And at that time, for me, when I started at Barry's, something that I knew I wanted to be a part of was helping other trainers. Because when I started, the training at that time was very much like, okay, here's how a class works. Now kind of go figure it out. Just, sink or swim on your own. Not a lot of support. And again, not like a conscious effort of like, oh, tough, figure it out. And like, we'll see, it just didn't exist. That just wasn't the thing. And that always stuck with me because I'm someone who always, coming from a performing world, craves criticism, critiques, things that help me get better. I've always been that type of person. And I've always taken criticism well. I never think of it as like a personal slight or someone telling you you're not good at something. Like, I want it because I'm always wanting to get better, believing I can get better. Even now, as a trainer at Barry 7 years later, I'm still thinking I can get better. I'm still trying to improve the way I cue, improve the way I program, the music, the moves. I'm always trying to get better. So that will never stop. So I saw an opportunity for us to really make that a real thing here at Barry. So I started to push for wanting to help with training groups, wanting to be a support system for like a new instructor, someone who you could go over programming with, someone who would come and take your class and give you feedback. So I was very instrumental in pushing that to become a thing. And then again, fast forward to where I'm at now, which is that is my role at Barry's. I'm part of the team that helps with, let's say, the quality control of new instructors and existing instructors. I lead training groups. I help with the recruiting of new and prospective instructors around the country, not just New York, because ultimately, as great and as well as I've personally done at Barry's and feel very successful in my classes myself, I'm sitting here talking to you, and there are 50 plus Barry studios operating just fine without me, right? Like, it's bigger than me. And what I feel most satisfied by is helping as many other instructors become great Barry's instructors, fitness people, period. So that's what I've always felt like. I want that to be my mark versus just leading a class. So that is what's pushed me into this avenue. In addition to teaching, I just love helping other people teach great classes.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's also, it's super important to bring up what you did of like, when boutique fitness started, the resources, even for all these, even when I was at SoulCycle, like all these huge companies that I think people who listen are going to be like, oh, well, Barry's, they must have so much resources and so much like, available to them. I bet their instructors are really, like groomed and things like that. I think it's important that you're calling out that when you first started, that just wasn't the case. Like you just said, you went from, 2 people to an average of 30 people. And that was without sort of a training program. So like you were able to, from a very, very bare bones perspective, look at things and be like, okay, I'm looking for, someone's telling me they're looking for my name on the schedule. Great. That means they probably are enjoying my classes because of X and X. Like you were able to sort of look at some data and kind of just like take it as your own feedback. So I think that's awesome. And I also think like, I can't say this enough because I always have instructors saying to me, and even like my dad is a yoga instructor. He like retired and he got his yoga certification to teach at recovery centers around Long Island. So he teaches like, and he's like, I only have 2 people coming to my class. And I was like, Dad, literally every single fantastic instructor, every single one at some point has had 0 to 3 people in their class. Like everybody has gone through that. And I think that is like, that's a really important call out because I think people are easily can look at you and be like, he has this phenomenal community. People seek him out. Like, but you did come from a place where that just wasn't your reality yet. And I think that is really important.
And that's a big thing that I stress too. Again, for me, I'm trying to help, the Barry's instructors, Barry's community, but I'm always telling instructors, period, of like, this is when we talk about longevity, right? In this field, it is a marathon plus an ultra marathon plus the Ironman and then do it again. Like even now, we just, as we know, just started Roslyn, right? It starts over. Just because I sell out classes in New York City, I moved to Roslyn, that doesn't automatically happen, you know? My 6 a.m., the first 2 weeks in Roslyn was one person. I had a no-show. I had nobody come to one of the 6 a.m.s I started with. And it starts from scratch again. So it's this never-ending process of um, constantly, it's one thing to do it once, but then can you do it again, you know? And then can you build it? And then can you take what worked the first time and not do the exact same thing, but learn from that and use some of those same skills and work ethic to take it to the next level in another place? Because again, every studio is different. Every region is different. So what works in one place. So you have to be just constantly open to trying new things, always being humble. It's one of our core values at Barry's is being, you know, humble and open to feedback and criticism, because as soon as you think you're too big or you can't teach a certain time slot, or if people aren't coming to your class, it's something wrong with them, or it's the time slot versus what you're doing in the room, then you've got your head on backwards, right? So it's something I'm always reminding people, like, it takes time, it takes a lot of work, and you just have to be hopefully willing to commit to it, willing to think of it as like, and I used to do this with my 9 PMs, you know, I didn't go into it thinking like, all right, I only have to do this for 6 months and I'm going to get a better time slot. My thought was, no, this is my class. Like, I wanted ownership of it, and I wanted to get to know those people, because if they could keep coming back over and over again, they should be able to come back Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, or at least that was how I thought at that time, so that I would see their faces all the time. And then actually what can happen sometimes is the opposite happens, where if you are offered a new class time slot, you kind of feel like you're leaving people, right? Like, yeah, you want to take them with you. So then that issue can arise sometimes too. So as much as, you know, we know that there are prime times, right? We know that there are times that work for more people than others. To just completely not understand the importance of the class time you're given and the people who come to that time, you do need to strike a balance of both, because otherwise you're kind of just deserting people who have become you've become a part of their life, you know?
Yeah. And I think even it's super important. Like after COVID, I had a lot of studio owners come to me and kind of just say, like, we thought people would just come back. And I think that, you know, it's exactly what you're saying. And I was like, no, but also this is the beauty of the pay per class model. This is why boutique fitness is so successful and is so like amazing, because you have to show up. You have to show up 100% of the time, every single time. This isn't Equinox where you're saying like, hey, we can charge you $180 a class or $180 a month, and then like pray you don't show up. Like that is
Oh yeah,
not, those are two literally opposite tail end business models. Like boutique fitness thrives on frequency and getting people to
yeah,
show up. So I think that's super important too. Let's talk about, well, okay, actually, let's talk about Roslyn. So when you opened
yeah,
Roslyn, you went from, you know, New York City to Roslyn is probably only what, like 20 miles, but is worlds different from
yeah,
each other.
yeah.
So what sort of did you do to be building up your classes? Like, I know that you are really amazing at actual individual conversations with people. Like, I'm
Yeah.
pretty confident I could say every single person in your class, you know something about their life. Like,
Yes.
so how did you talk to me about how you built Roslyn?
So what's fun to talk about this is, like, this is also, you know, it's not a past tense conversation. These are things that I'm still actively doing, because we just opened end of July, right? Which wasn't necessarily the dream scenario, because it's middle of the summer. Obviously, everyone's still dealing with COVID and all these things. Lots of people were just away, not feeling comfortable in studio, all the things that many of us are facing right now, right? But for me, it always starts with that simplicity of, when your class is small, you have no excuse not to know 4 people. You got to know their first name, maybe their last name, have a moment with each one of those people, make sure that one of them hangs with you after class, before class, whenever you can, to not feel like you've taken that hour, which is a ton of time, right, to connect with each one of those people. You know, kind of make a joke that, all right, it's not that full, it's only us, but like clue into, like, one day it's not going to be us, it's going to be more than us, this and that. And to really just have that special connection with the people who, like, started with you, those people will become not only your most trusted clients and allies in your business, but be prepared for actual friendships and actual things that take place outside of the studio, which is the bonus thing that I think people understand, but they don't really understand what that will be like when it actually comes to fruition, right? Like we're talking about myself, we had Eli 2 years ago, and when we had Eli, my mom had passed away recently, so it was just a very difficult time in life, right? My mom had just passed. We're finally having a son, like all these different emotions, and I could not have been more amazed at just how many of my clientele and people who take my class for years just offered themselves up to me, right? Everything from just like conversations. It wasn't always about the gift or sending us things, this and that, because they did that too, and that's always appreciated. But just like, kind of many different people filling the void of like losing a mother. I had many female clients who were like that, many extra people who I consider other fathers or people who I look up to in that way, reaching out to me. So again, the point being, you get it back in not only the business and fitness and people showing up, but you'd be shocked to see when you truly get to know people, what that does for your life, period. And that has always been the thing that motivates me more than just people coming to take class and the business doing well, because if your life improves with it, then the business will also follow. And like you said, you can't fake it, right? You can't fake genuinely wanting to get to know someone versus, oh, I'm just trying to be nice to you because I want you to come take my class, right? That's a very real thing, and people can see through that very quickly. And if they can't figure it out after 2 or 3 classes, they'll know after coming and taking or trying to take your class 5 times. They'll give you, I always think it's that. I feel like most people will give you like 5 chances, which is being generous. And then after that 5th one, which is fair, if you still haven't proven yourself, they'll never come back. And that's something crucial to remember, right? So for me right now, it's just taking the time, getting to the studio. For me, I like to get to the studio minimum half hour, but sometimes I get there an hour early because I'm a studio nerd. I like to just hang out with the staff and get to know the staff well and all the different things, so that as people come in, I'm greeting them right as they walk into the door. If I don't have a chance to talk to them after class, I will sometimes be an Instagram stalker and see if they have an Instagram account and find them. And I'll look and see if people tag the studio. And if we're not friends yet, I will compliment them. What a great class. Who'd you take class with? Oh, come take class with me. I'm going to go take class at Luke's. Let's take class together. Like, I'm always looking for different things like that to do, utilizing social media, utilizing the tags that we have. We've made a huge commitment from Barry's now with some of the stuff that we do of like celebrating the milestones, right? Making a big deal out of birthdays, making a big deal out of bringing friends, like all of these chances that are like, basically they're all just conversation starters that if you don't use it to not only celebrate a milestone, but then genuinely talk to them about the milestone, then it's a missed opportunity. So it's combining all those things and still doing those things now. I go to the Roosevelt Field Mall and I have a stack of class comps for people to come and try class with me or somebody else. I'm handing those out like crazy. So again, it's all these things and trying to reinvent them and try them in different ways that are never ending,
Yeah, and it's like these are the OG things, right? Like it's such an important conversation to have, because I think a lot of people, now, right now that boutique fitness has been around for what, like 15, 20 years or whatever. I think people are looking and they're like, well, maybe that's the old way to do things, or we don't need to do those things anymore. And I think it's such an amazing reminder that you're saying that, because I do think, like, when I was at Soul Cycle, I was working in the marketing department, and I think we did sort of lose sight of the OG ways that we used to connect to people. And I think it was palpable. Like, it was really a clear sort of shift when that stopped happening. And like, just the little things of just the hospitality of like, there's that story of when Soul Cycle was first started. Julie and Elizabeth they had a rider. They'd been open for like a few weeks, and they brought them a onesie. They like put a little wheel on a onesie. They knew this person was pregnant, and that was the gift to them. And like, those little touches build your business. They do. And it's just, I think it's such an amazing call out that you're saying that you're still doing those things.
And that, and even like you said, of like, you not forgetting like what got you there, and making sure that those people who, because again, Barry's has been around now for 20 plus years now, those people who started way back, making sure that they still feel honored and appreciate to be here, and not completely losing what got you here. You know, like one of my favorite stories about Barry starting was in West Hollywood, how just one of the many things Barry J would do, which made him so special, and he is just one of the best people ever. If you didn't show up for class, as many people know, a bigger reason why, you know, if you don't show up for class, you get charged. It's not like a money grab, as you know. It is like, no, this is important. This takes away from the instructor pay, like all these different things. But the bigger thing was just that notion of accountability. And they used to take it a step further, where if you signed up for class and you weren't there, Barry J would call your house. Barry J would call your house and ask where you were, because he knew that you signed up for class and needed to be there. Or if you lived close enough, to West Hollywood, he would go to your house.
Oh my God.
And knock on your door. This is what he used to do back in the way for accountability. Or if he saw you out, you know, at bars, this and that, and then realized that the reason you weren't coming was because maybe you had a couple too many the night before, he would again seek you out, find you to get you to come in, because he cared. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't like to put you on blast. It was just like, a part of you signed up for this class. A part of you wants to be here. That part needs to be here. You're going to be regretful that you weren't here, you know? And of course, you know, if you have a genuine conflict, we all know that exists, but like, I would hear those stories and I was like, that is genius. To me, that's genius to do that, to care that much about your clients, that like, if they're not there, it's not like, oh, this person's not here. It's like, no, we need to form a search party and find where Bradley is, whoever the person is. But that was brilliant. And that's kind of, you know, how it should be.
Oh my God, I love that. That's so funny. All right. Final question. I mean, I feel like we could talk about this for hours, but final question I want to talk about is frequency. And kind of, you know, exactly like we're saying, is like boutique fitness thrives on frequency. We need people to show up more often. And, you know, the numbers, I always advise my clients, like 4 to 6 for most people, like 4 to 6 classes a month is average what we should be looking at. Like there's a lot of people, like we all know, that come in once or twice a month. And it's like, it's all about just getting those people to come in a little bit more often. You guys are phenomenal at running your challenges, and you do them a lot, like more than I think I see with a lot of other boutique fitness studios. What do you do from the instructor side to sort of make sure people are signed up, get people in, you know, if there's anything beyond sort of just like the social media, you know, conversations after class? What do you think makes a great challenge, and what do you specifically do to foster a challenge?
I think what makes a great challenge is, again, making sure that you feel like you cast your net wide enough that it can attract every type of person who wants to exercise, right? No matter how old they are, young they are, ability level, something that casts a wide net. So a perfect example is right now, it's funny that you say this, because of course, like as we were chatting, I'm like, oh, our level up challenge is happening right now. So for example, just using this one that we're doing now as the perfect talking point, it's anywhere from 5 classes to 10 classes to 20 classes to 30 classes in a month, right? So in that just wide net, you've given an attainable goal to someone who is terrified, and maybe they'll just take 1 class a week, that's your 5. To, you know, the type of person who does want like a really like all in, I'm gonna go 30 classes in 30 days and go big, right? So you've cast a wide enough net. But within that, no matter which one you've chosen, there is a reward. There's an accomplishment for achieving something that you had to commit to early on in the month, right? Because we want people to commit to 5 or 10 or 15, like at the start of the challenge or within the window that we offer the challenge for. So it's like, there's the accountability part of it. It's also then just a way to prove to people how your working out can be something that's attainable, that, okay, if I did it 5 times a month, maybe next month I could do 10, or just at least taking some of the fear of getting into a healthy habit of exercise and working out. And to me, that's what it proves. And that's what I try to talk about when I'm addressing all the people who are doing a challenge in class, is like, yes, we want people to post on social media, talk about with their friends, but just find a fitness schedule that works for you. And that's the nice thing about the challenges. It proves like maybe 20 was too much and you only ended up doing 10. Maybe that's where you should end up. So it's just a great way of, I always feel like the challenges are fun. There's pictures, there's shirts, there's usually giveaways, all the type of stuff, which is great. But what it does is it kind of gives people a chance to do it multiple times in a month, realize that it's not as scary as they thought, and then it becomes something that they make time for. They fit into their schedule, and then they find their sweet spot. Because I think a lot of times in fitness period, too many people are taking too many classes, and that's why they don't come back. They just get burned out. They this and that. I like it when people are able to find their sweet spot, and then that becomes consistency for them, and then that becomes consistency for the studio. So when you have these challenges like we do, there's just something for everybody, and everybody can usually end up succeeding and surprising themselves and then coming back for more. And then the next time they do it, they want to have a friend come with them, or they will do the next challenge. That's the other thing. It's not just one challenge. They're like, all right, I can't wait to see what this next challenge is. I'm going to try that next one. So it hits on all these different cylinders.
I love that. All right. Rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Uh-oh. I think I'm ready. Okay. I think I'm ready.
Your number one favorite song to play during class, like your go home song.
All right. So this is like a two-parter because we always play like a nice cool down song. It's the hug after class, right? You need the hug after class. So for right now, still, this is from my mentor, Alicia, but Still Into You from Paramore, but it's the Riddler remix. So if you're looking for like one that's going to be perfect, awesome, Paramore, Still Into You, Riddler remix is like my like jam. I could sprint through walls to that song. And then Cool Down, I just love any and everything that is Jason Mraz to cool down to, because it's something I still sing. So if you take my class, some people know this, you'll hear me like kind of singing along with it, but I try to hide it so you can't tell it's me. But there's like two ends of the spectrum for music in class.
Okay, I love it. Yeah, I have a whole playlist of everybody's responses from like their last song, and it's a good playlist. So we'll add that one. Software that you can't live without.
The Starbucks pre-order app. Now that I ride the train into the city, I like to like order it at just the right moment so that when I get off the train and I go past whichever studio I'm going to, it's there, I'm waiting for it, I'm in and out. That's a godsend for myself. Double espresso. If you ever see me and you want to bring me coffee, double espresso. There we go.
Amazing. Black? Nothing
Black. Come on. Powerful.
No. All right. Best business advice you ever got?
This is more in recent years, but I would say it's leave work when it's over. And what I mean by that is like when you're done for the day, like shut it down. Like whether it's closing the phone, closing the email, when it's your actual day off, like whatever that means to you, like when you've left work, leave it. Especially now, you know, having a son, family, house, like I want to enjoy that. I love my schedule and how much time I get to spend with my wife, my son, and with my family. So that is very, very important, special time for me. And I just want to cherish it as much as possible. So when you're done with work, get your work done so that you can just not be working.
Yeah, super important. It's so difficult. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Wes and I have talked about this a lot. Wesley, my wife, we've talked about this a lot. We really love like Norway, Sweden, like that part of the world, which we also have berries in. So it's not totally off the table, but that's like a place we just love, like what it looks like, the people there, the community. That's something that's always interested us. And then we went there on our honeymoon and we just loved it. But Costa Rica, we loved Costa Rica. Love. Yeah.
I love that. Advice you'd give your younger self?
I thought about this one. So I would have said to myself, keep going. You'll love where this road takes
you. That's a good one.
So no changes. Just remind myself to keep going. You'll be fine.
Yeah, it all works out. Dream job besides what you're doing right now, like something crazy.
I watch entirely too much HGTV. So I would be in another life remodeling homes, designing homes, decorating homes, flipping homes. So one of
You
those
look like one of
categories.
you could be like a property cousin. Like
I'm
you could
trying to
fit
think of
in
a
with
way.
them.
I'm trying to think there has to be a demographic that would be into like fitness plus house flipping. I just haven't made the connection yet. Like it's like, physical makeover plus house makeover. I don't know. So if there's anyone listening that has any ideas, I'm your guy to combine fitness with house remodeling. I don't know how.
So
We'll figure
funny.
it out.
I would never expect you to say that. That's hilarious. What is one lesson you took from 2020 that you want to keep with you?
Just like cherish like the littlest things. Like even going from a time of when we were doing fitness classes at home, when we were doing our initial berries at home, like I'm on the kitchen floor in my apartment trying to lift with milk jugs, or telling people at home if they didn't have weights, because we all know weights disappeared. They became like the biggest commodity out there. Just like that level of creativity and the lengths that we went to just to be able to work out together, not just work out, but like that's what group fitness is, right? Working out with many other people together. The lengths that we went to keep it going, to now being back in studio, like I'll stand and look at the treadmill and just be so thankful to be on a treadmill again, or so thankful that there are weights in my hand and not milk jugs. That we have benches, that we have, like, again, just the littlest things I'm always reminding myself to cherish and appreciate. And that goes in every category of life, of just appreciating the time, the people you choose to share your time with. Like, just if you cherish the smallest things, then like big time events will just like blow you away when they happen.
I love that. That's so good. All right, Matt, where can people find you? How can they take your class and connect with you?
So many different ways now you can take with me in person. So as we talked about, I teach in Roslyn now. I teach still in New York City on the Upper East Side. And now you have no excuse to be able to take class with me anytime, anywhere with Barry's X. I teach live classes on our Barry's app on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. So just head to the website, find all the information you need. We're actually doing a 7-day free trial right now. So you can try the Barry's X platform and have unlimited video on demand classes, as well as live class credits. It's a really cool app. There's social media aspect to it. You can make friends on the app. You can turn a red room filter on the app, so it looks like you're in your own personal red room. We have every type of class. Our traditional Barry's run and lift classes. We have just lift classes, different lengths of time. So we've really gone all in on the digital platform, and it's going to be amazing. So there's that way to take class with me. And Matt Nolan runs. Find my Instagram, and you can enjoy pictures of myself, my Barry's time, but more importantly, you can watch me and Eli watch football together, which has become a fan favorite. Some people are wanting it to be its own YouTube channel, but in time we'll figure out something for that.
It's very funny. He's adorable.
He's all right. Come on, I made him.
He's
so it's
very
fine.
Cute. Well, okay, Matt, thank you so much, and I'll see you in class on Friday.
Done. See you there.
Thank you. That was so good.